Hey guys, welcome to Cultivate and Keep. It's Jeremy and Corey.
Yo, yo.
Welcome, guys. Welcome, Corey.
We're back. Thank you, sir. Welcome to you.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while since we recorded.
Yeah.
Life has gone on. July was a doozy, you know?
You've never said doozy before.
Really? Maybe not.
You
here
say,
on the
what do you
podcast.
say? What's that one word you say when you're frustrated?
Man alive? Is that the one?
No.
Frick, now I'm just going to name all the stupid things that I say.
What do you say? Shoot, it's super funny. It's really nerdy. That's why it's funny. That'll come back to me.
Okay.
Anyway, well, when we record, we typically we'll batch record, so we'll do 2 or 3 at a time, and we've been busy the last few weeks, and so we've had to use up those ones in the queue, and so it's been like 3 weeks. So
Yeah, it has been, huh? Because I went on a brief vacation, went on the cruise, and then we came back. I think we recorded, and then we had weddings, we had websites, we had bachelor parties, etc. So,
well, fill me in. What's been happening in your life?
Dude, a lot. I mean,
You've been working for me.
Yeah, I've been working for you. I've been working like a slave. Just kidding.
It's true.
It's
cheap labor. It's good.
Yeah, too cheap. No, I've had a lot of weddings. We had the bachelor party. We had the wedding last week. Our good friend Kyle Moberg. Shout out to Kyle. What's good? I know he listens. I'll get a laugh out of that. But we're it's just been like a super busy season for us. Like it just seems like back to back to back to back. I think it's sort of because it's summer. But also I think like this whole weddings thing, like all of our friends had just been getting married this year, including you. And shout out to Jerry Swag and Connie. What's your like couple's name? Do you have one?
Oh no, we're too cool for that.
Johnny.
John. Oh, because no, we don't do that.
Oh, what the heck?
Not about all that,
Oh, whatever, dude.
Yeah.
It's
What's
because you have
yours?
something like Corey.
Corrique?
That's right, baby. Corrique.com. Actually, I think I let
No way.
the website expire.
You have a website?
Yeah, that was our website where we collected our registrations
got it.
and let people know and everything. It was a noise too. But dude, it's just been super busy. Through it all too, I forgot to mention this, but so back when I was playing basketball and I split my eye open, I had to go to the emergency room that night, and then I came back a week later to get them out from like doctor's instructions. Well, 2 weeks ago, I got a bunch of mail, and I didn't open it until like this last week, and I opened it, and it says that I have $1,200 due for the ER. I was like, $1,200? What the heck? Like my insurance didn't cover any of this. So basically what happened was they filed each visit as a separate claim. And since the second one, I was coming back to get my stitches removed because that's what they told me to do. And mind you, everyone listening who's been to the ER before knows like, oh, don't go unless it's an emergency. Yeah. That was my very first time in the emergency room. And they literally told me, because I was like, they're like, hey, you can come back here or you can go to your primary care physician, whatever, to get them out. I was like, I don't have one. They're like, okay, that's fine.
Oh, you went back to the ER. Okay, got it. Okay.
I was like, I don't have one. And so like, oh, that's fine. They just come back. You won't be able to make an appointment, obviously, but just, tell them that you're here to have your stitches removed, and it'll take like 10 minutes. So that's what I did. And then I get a bill for $1,000. My insurance covered the other, like, I think it was like $1,800 just to have stitches in my eye. So I only had to pay $200. But now I have to figure that out. So I called them back and forth, yada, yada, yada.
That's a pain.
Anyways, it's taken up like another few hours that I don't have in the last 2 weeks, just trying to figure out how to get that reduced and or covered completely. Because since I was going back, it's not like an emergency service. So it's just kind of a lame situation.
Sorry, dude.
Yeah, it's all right.
Well, to brighten your day, I remember the name that you say.
Oh, yeah. What is it?
He'll like make a mistake and he'll go, I'm such a dingus. Dingus. It's so funny.
Oh, that's such a good one.
And you are a dingus, Corey.
Thank you. You're a dingus sometimes too, dude.
I know.
Yeah, dingus. That's a good one. Yeah. Anyways, how you guys been doing?
I was waiting for that.
Yeah.
I was like, I want my time, man.
That's right. There's a softball.
Just kidding. Really good. Same as you. Busy. We finally.
This is like peak wedding season too,
yeah,
right?
Peak wedding season. So for the business, just actually, you know what? August actually slows down a bit. But yeah, like May through November is like peak, and so July was super busy, really crazy, and that's when we started like the rebrand project for the new company that we have now. So we changed our name, we built a whole new website. Corey was a huge help for that. That was the joke about the free labor.
That was the slavery, yeah.
Or cheap labor.
That's right.
Nothing but bone, don't worry.
Thank you.
Take care, my boy. But yeah, I mean, that project was like crazy, just getting everything like, up and running, and a ton of decisions and choices and just changes, which is not easy for me. So like a lot of just new stuff, and like all in like 2 or 3 weeks, like just crammed in there. So today we like officially like launched the website and the new company. So I'm super stoked. It feels really good to have like done. So like today I feel really good. But if we would record like last week, I would not be good. So yeah, I feel good. Just been busy, but I feel like we're on like the tail end of like the craziness,
Yeah.
And yeah, dude. So I'm super stoked.
Yeah.
It's kind of been like my like focus the last month,
Yeah, you can finally check that box.
Yeah.
And get that off your plate. There was a lot, dude. I mean, like rebrand is one thing, a new website is another thing.
Mm-hmm.
A new name is another thing.
Yeah, I mean, even on like I didn't think about, but the legal like business side of things, even that alone is like a lot of time and even like money, dude. It's been expensive, like to, like I don't know, like legally to file like a new business name and all that kind of stuff. Like it's expensive. And so,
did you do like a DBA basically?
So that's what we did with Steckler when we took over that one, but now we're forming a corporation, and so.
Interesting.
Yeah, we're like, it's kind of weird because we're doing like a hybrid for 2019. So half the year we were like a sole prop, and then from July going forward we're a corporation. And so it's kind of tricky like tax wise and all that. And so we basically just hire our lawyers to do it for us.
Yeah.
So he's doing it, paying him, and it takes like the headache away from me to have to figure all that out. But it's expensive, So.
Yeah, definitely.
Is
the whole like forming a corporation kind of thing? Because now there's like the merging of the two companies, and
so the reason why we did that is because we want to buy a house, and we've kind of been like talking about it. Like last year when we did taxes, we showed that the company had a loss. That way we paid the least amount of taxes, and it was the best for us. But going to get like pre-qualified for a home doesn't look good for because you showed you made no money last year, and so our attorney was like, hey, like at some point you have to bite the bullet. You have to incorporate. You don't have to, but you should, and then you can start showing that you're, earning money. And he kind of said like, this is the time. Like we're merging two companies into one. The business is growing. I mean, it was hard last year to show a loss, so like this is the year that like it's time to show a profit. And so, yeah, that's kind of why we did it. And it's kind of like, yeah, we'll pay more in taxes this year, and yeah, it's like a big like stress, is a headache. But at the end of the day, it'll be better for us. So
yeah, I think that's smart. I didn't even think about that whole part of things.
Exactly. So just, like even that part I didn't think about either, and it's like a ton of like work and a lot to like process and think through. But I'm learning a lot, so it's exciting.
I think of all the things in like business, all the like legal part of things like scares me the most.
Oh, same for me. In my mind, like that's like Connie's like job to handle.
Babe, figure this out.
Yeah, and she's really good at it. Like she knows what she's doing, and that stuff just overwhelms me. Like I would rather deal with like the like day-to-day stuff and like just the business itself, but like the legal side is like, dude, like I don't know, like
dude, icky.
It's so many.
Like,
it's
foreign
weird.
Language.
Yeah, but she like we have like a meeting with our attorney, and like the whole time Connie's just like handling it. I'm just like, yeah, like it's a wave in my head. Like I don't know.
On Instagram, just definitely.
No, dude, the guy has this like.
I concur.
No, he has this bag that you put your phones in. Don't know how it works, but it basically cuts off like all like cellular reception. So it's like you put your phones in there and you literally don't get any messages. It's as if your phone's off. It's kind of cool.
What?
And so I just sit there and like,
twiddle your thumbs.
Just look cute,
Do what you do best.
Yeah,
just look pretty.
Comes natural,
All right. Well, I think that's our cue to move on.
Dude, my mouth is still hot from that sauce.
Mine is too, dude.
We had some habanero sauce.
Yeah, like I said, that taste is still in my mouth.
Jeez,
it's good. That's worth it.
Okay.
Nice. Well, today we want to talk about something that's a little bit of a faux pas party pooper kind of topic a little bit, but I think it's definitely worth talking about because, for that reason, because no one really talks about it, right? Yeah. I mean, how do you feel about it?
Well, it's divorce. That's the topic. Just want to say it.
Gonna say the D word, the ugly one.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about like, I don't know, just like what was on my mind, and when I was thinking of like what we should talk about, and thinking about like divorce, like I feel like kind of like weird to say, but like I feel like people that I know and I've known for a long time, like a few people that I've known have recently gone through divorces, and um I don't know, I was just like pondering, like thinking, like man, like why is this happening, and like so a why is it happening, and b like what do I do to prevent that? It's kind of like my thoughts. So I wanted to say, like, as we're talking, like me and Corey aren't like coming to this episode like here are the answers, like here's how you like avoid this. We're just literally like talking it out, like
Yeah.
sharing our thoughts. And so I don't know. I mean, I think my first thought is like just being sad, like just thinking like when I hear people that I've known for a while like tell me like what happened, or what's happening, makes me sad. Like I'm like, man, like that just sucks. Like I'm so sad they're going through that, and I want to do everything I can to not experience that. But yeah, what would cause it? I mean, that's like in itself is what we're gonna talk about, I guess. But
Yeah. I know it's interesting because at least in my experience, it's always like kind of like a surprise. And I don't know, it's like it's sad, but either way, if it's a surprise or not, like if you knew it was coming or whatever, I think that's maybe even sadder actually. But it also stinks like, wow, like when you hear the full story or when you hear what's going on or, why they're thinking about it or why they are or why they did, it's just like, man, like I wish I would have known, or like you kind of feel at fault too. You know what I mean? Like, especially if they're your friend. You're like, I wish, why didn't you tell me, or why didn't I ask, or is there anything that I could have done or said, that would have kind of prevented this? So it's definitely sad in that way, like you kind of feel a part of that responsibility a little bit. But also, yeah, I mean, I think that's why I'm excited to talk about it a little bit too, just because like the big thing is like bring it to the light, and like if it being a secret is going to be something that the devil and Satan is going to like use against you as like a foothold of like, you have to keep this a secret. It's shameful. Even the fact that you're thinking about it, that you're struggling in your marriage is like bad and you can't let anyone know. Otherwise they're going to see you differently or judge you, or you're going to look bad in your marriage. But that's like the worst thing you can do, right? You have to bring it to the light. And so even like these kind of preventative things of like us just talking about it, hopefully brings more of it into the light. And if you are struggling in your marriage, or if you know someone who's struggling in their marriage, maybe this will help in some way, even if it's small.
yeah, I mean, I think I feel like talking about it before it's an issue is like what will make it easier. Like when I've been hearing like these stories recently, I think for myself like, okay, like what where are me and my wife at, like where are we, and like what issues do I see that like could potentially like lead to big issues, or like one day maybe divorce. And like I think about that, and I think like the first step is like between me and her, like to talk about those issues, work them out, and then like counsel, and then like thirdly like friends, like you and other guys I'm close with, like they should know like where we're at and how we're doing. I feel like if that happens, like if you, Corey, know how me and Connie are doing before it gets hard, like it'll be easier to share with you when it is hard, rather than like we don't talk about it at all, and then
spilling your guts
all
out
of a sudden I'm like, hey dude, I hate my wife, like that could be like that'd be really hard. And so
right.
so I think just like really with anything like accountability wise, like talk about it before it's like an issue. But I think especially for this,
Yeah. I mean, if you think about, I don't know, again, going back to like, I guess like why a divorce happens, a lot of it is, well, and then like, what do you do about it? They're kind of the same things always. It's like, be super transparent with each other and communicate. And then it's like, be involved in your community, get people involved, like go to your pastors, get counseling, pray together about it. And like that also should have been the stuff that you were doing beforehand too. It's like the earlier, like I said, you can do that, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah. Well, let's get into some of the points. Go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the things, I don't know, to keep in mind too, is that the way that we see divorce as Christians is going to be a lot different than our society and world kind of at large, right? I've seen it personally in my family. So both my parents had been divorced previously. Pretty much all of my siblings have been divorced. Actually, yeah, they all have. People that I've known, like I've seen it firsthand. I haven't been like directly involved in it. Like my parents, didn't divorce. Although my siblings, their parents did. But dude, it sucks. Like, it's ugly. And I think that a lot of people see it as just like a breakup almost, like, oh, it didn't work out. It's okay. We're better off apart than we were together. Actually, maybe I shouldn't have mentioned it, but do you know what I'm about to bring up?
No, I don't, but I want to hear.
Oh, well, okay. I just saw it on Twitter. It was not like I was looking for it or just, I don't know. Anyways, but Miley Cyrus and Liam Hemsworth, famous celebrity people, whatever.
Divorced?
They're like separated, I think, with the intention of getting divorced.
Dude, on the way home from Santa Barbara for the wedding, we drove through Malibu, and the whole time Connie was like, "Wow, I think Miley lives in this house or that house."
Really?
That's where she's from, I guess. So it's kind of funny you bring that up.
Yeah. So I think
but they just got married, right? Like a couple years ago.
No, like they've been married for like 10 months.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and so
worse than I thought.
Still very early on in the marriage, and already divorced. But it was crazy because the way that they explained it, especially the way that she explained it, was like, we're, as we like get to know get more in touch with who we are as a person and like each other and get closer to me. And like the more that I fall in love with myself, the more I realize that we're better apart or whatever. And we're just rooting for each other. And I'm like, what? This is totally backwards. Like there really isn't like a good thing that can come out of a divorce. I mean, it's like every divorce in society is like it's not a big deal, one, and then two, like it's somehow a good thing for both of you or for the other person. Yeah. Like, no, what? This is not how it's supposed to be. So the angle that we come at it as Christians is going to be much different.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, I think that that's I don't know. I think the people that I've known that like that are Christians that have divorced, and that's what they've like bought into. Like, oh, like the more that I learn about myself and discover who I am, I've learned that I'm better, without this person, whatever. Yeah. I think I've heard that from a few Christian people. Surprisingly, like those that have been older, and divorced. But I don't think that's like as big of an issue for believers, because it's just crap. Like honestly, if you think about what that is, like it's not true. One thought I wanted to throw out there before you continue is, what about like you get married, like me and Connie, when we got married, like we had like a very serious like talk, like during engagement, like, hey, like this is like for real, like we're not getting divorced. It's like not an option. Like this is like for the rest of our lives. Like, are you okay with that? And we both were like, yeah, of course. So we have like that promise to each other, but like, what do you do like when it actually gets like muddy and it actually gets difficult? Like, it's a promise, but so is marriage. Marriage is a covenant, and I feel like my whole life, I've kind of felt like, I guess, assured by that promise that between me and my wife. Because when I was younger, I remember one night my parents had like a big argument. It was super intense, and I was probably like 5 or 6. I'm crying like, Mom, Dad, like, are you gonna get a divorce? And I remember my mom telling me like, no, like before we got married, we promised each other we were not gonna get divorced, and it was like so sure, and like in the way she said it to me, and I was like, like, yeah, okay. So I kind of grew up like thinking like that's all I need. All I need is like make a promise with my wife, and I'm good. And so that's like what me and Connie did, and I feel like there's not much more I can do besides that. But it's like, I guess what I'm trying to say is like, what happens, 20 years down the road, and like what was once like a small issue got really big, and like how do you avoid like big blow ups and like big whatever. And I guess why I'm like thinking about this is because people that I've known for a while like are getting divorced, and so it's kind of like, man, what is causing this, and what can I do to prevent that? And so right. I don't know, just like thoughts in my head that I'm like thinking through.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it'd be good to like kind of define what is a marriage, and like I guess like what does even a divorce mean, especially from this Christian angle. Like one of the things you said was like a promise, right? So I think we can both agree that a marriage is a promise to each other, but a Christian marriage is a covenant, which is a promise between you, your spouse, and to God. I mean, that was one of the crazy parts for me, like understanding that. And that was one of the things that Monique and I talked about when we got engaged, was like, and before we got engaged was like, no, like marriage, like this is for real. Like you said, like it's not an option to get a divorce. Like this is forever. This is a promise. Even if, the other spouse, is cheating, or even if there's some sort of crazy thing that happens, or, gamble away all of our money, if the other person gets sick, if we, move away, like there is no situation that makes it okay. Like we're in this with the intention of being together forever, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, and so, I mean, that's kind of what a marriage is. So like, I don't know, what is a divorce? Is it breaking that promise, or is it making that promise not true? Like I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think it's obviously breaking the promise, like, because, and this is one thing, I feel like I've talked about with people that I know that are going through this, is like, you once had the promise, like you made the promise, like this was what you both decided. If you're like no longer in that, then it was broken. Like, bottom line, doesn't matter why or like what, it was broken. And so, like, yeah, to answer your question, it's broken. To say that, your second point was that it wasn't true. Is that what you said? Like the promise wasn't true?
No, I think I was meaning like,
'Cause
like if it is a promise and you break it, does that mean that like the you're no, like that is okay to get a divorce, I guess, essentially, but also like, when does the divorce happen? Like, is it more of like a legal thing, or is it more of like a promise thing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how do you kind of balance those two?
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the things I was thinking about was, there's two parts to it, really.
Mm-hmm.
I think first and foremost, there's the spiritual part where like this is a promise before you and your spouse and God, and that this marriage is recognized by God. But then there's the pastor and the legal certificate, right, of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
They get signed by, whatever it is, the person in California, like the state attorney, or I don't know who the heck it is actually. When the pastor says like, and with the power vested in me by the state of wherever you live, I now pronounce you.
You may kiss your bride.
Yeah, you may kiss your bride.
It's a good moment.
So there's two parts of it, right? And so like, I don't know, it's weird. Like, a divorce, there's a legal aspect to it, but there's also a very spiritual side to it.
Yeah, I think like my thoughts are like, I mean, I feel like legally, I mean, a lot of what we do, like, is, we were talking about like, my business, right? Like, I mean, there's like I can make my name, Wonder Event Rentals, whatever. That's my business name. I can do that. It doesn't really mean a whole lot. If someone else goes and gets like the legal fictitious business name and takes that name, then like legally I can't have that name, right? And so, like the legal side does matter. Like there's like day-to-day life. Like I could call myself Wonder Event Rentals, but someone else could have it legally. So you could kind of could play both sides, but the legal side does matter, is what I'm trying to say. So I think like with divorce, like, yeah, I guess you would technically be divorced, like when the legal, the papers are signed and it kind of goes through. But I feel like once like in your heart, like you've decided, like, I'm done with this. Like, I mean, you're kind of like, you're done. Like,
you're choosing
to be separated
divorce.
and to divorce. And so legally it's not done, but yeah, I mean, I think that's the answer.
Yeah, I think the promise aspect of it is a big part, like you said. Just because, well, when you make a promise, right? I am going to be married to you. I'm going to be married to you for the rest of my life, and this is my promise to you before God. To having to hold love and cherish. When you like, that promise is there now forever, and like there's only one. You can either keep that promise, and then there's only one other option, which is to break that promise. And so, like, really, it's pretty binary. Like, there is no, it's okay, or like the promise is going to be broken by someone at some point, or it's not going to be broken, and you are going to continue to be married. I put down a couple of verses just because, like, I think there's some weight in this whole like promise aspect of it. But in Proverbs 20:25, it says, "It is a trap for a man to dedicate something rashly, and only later to consider his vows." So basically, it's a trap for a man to like just kind of willy-nilly promise something, and then later be like, "Oh, what did I really do?" Like, the thing that you promise is for real, and so like when you're making that promise, really consider it.
Yeah, and I think we've like talked about this before, but I don't think like you can really understand or recognize like how serious or like forever that promise is until you're like in it,
Yeah, it's true.
We talked about it, but like for me, like I heard over and over and over again, like, are you sure? Like, this is forever. Like, there's no going
Yeah.
back. And I was like, yeah, like, I understand. I got it. Like, we're
Right.
good. And then, like, a few months after being married, I was like, oh, crap. Like, I'm not saying, like, oh, I wanted out, but it was like a moment of just kind of realizing, like, oh, this actually is forever. Like, there is no getting out of this. And I don't think you can really understand that, honestly. Like, I feel like I, like, had a good, like, head on my shoulders and, like, a good understanding, and I had no idea the weight, And it wasn't until after being married and in that covenant that it hit me. And I was like, oh, this is like, there is no getting out,
Yeah, 100%. I think that, like, knowing the weight, like, you can't see or feel the weight of it until you're in it. Deuteronomy 23:23 says, "You shall be careful to perform what goes out from your lips, just as you have voluntarily vowed to the Lord your God what you have promised." Again, like, once you make it, I think it becomes a lot more real, but it doesn't mean that you have no excuse of, like, well, I didn't know what it means, what it meant. It's like, okay, well then, like, try to put as much thought into it as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But again, just because you didn't know what you're doing doesn't mean that you're off the hook. If that makes sense. One more verse, Matthew 12:36 says, Jesus says, "Every careless word that men shall speak, they shall render account for it in the day of judgment." And that's also another part that we haven't really touched on, is like, when you get a divorce, like, what's going to be your account with God?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, your job is to, like, when you made that promise before God, like, that was like a literal, I mean, one of the crazy things to me about marriage is, like, there's only so many, I guess, like, promises or, like, covenants that you could make with God. And, like, marriage is, like, the one, I feel like, like, one is like, I'm going to surrender my life to you. And then two is like, I'm going to marry this person. It's like, whoa, like, this is probably, I mean, it's like my only one other covenant that I make before God. Like, God made covenants with, Moses and Abraham and all these other people about, I'm going to make you into a great nation, or I'm going to help you deliver, the people out of Egypt, things like that. And it's like, we made that same kind of promise to God when we chose to marry someone.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, as, like, the man, I mean, I feel like, we bear, like, ultimate responsibility. And, I think, like, just for the direction of, like, the marriage and how it goes, I think, like, as a man, like, it's, I don't know, I feel like, for me, I feel like a weight, like, man, like, when our marriage is, like, again, we've been married for 7 months, so it's not, like, a super long time, but, like, when there's, good days, bad days, whatever, or weeks, and if we aren't connecting, we're not on the same page, like, I feel responsible to, like, be the one that causes, like, a course adjustment. Like, I'm the one that has to really initiate a change. Yeah, we both, like, play equal parts, my wife and I, but as, like, the man, as the leader, like, I need to be the one to, like, ensure that it happens. And so, like, thinking about like, when divorce happens, I think, like, for a divorce, it's case by case. I think, like, for example, if, like, the woman cheats on the husband, like, yeah, I mean, you can't say that's the man's fault. I do think, like, leading up to the cheating, the man, could have probably done things differently. Like, he probably would have, could have played a better role in that sense. But I think ultimately, like, yeah, the man, like, plays a big part in how things go. And I think, like, for judgment, like you're saying, for standing before God, like, I don't know. I mean, I think if you're the man or woman, like, yeah, that's a big deal. But especially as, like, a man, like, you stand before God and he's saying, hey, how'd you do with, this, with the wife that I brought you? And I don't know, having to say, oh, like, not well, it's like, it's a hard thing to think about and to grasp.
Yeah, there's a lot of weight to it.
About, as you were talking, I was thinking, like, we're putting, like, a lot of emphasis on, like, this, but I mean, I think with anything in our life, like judgment and, like, standing before God, like, no matter what it is, like, we're gonna have to give an account. Whether it was, like, lying or cheating or whatever it is, like, we have to give an account. And the sin or the stumbling isn't, like, more weighty for certain topics than others. So
that's true.
Like, they both in God's eyes, like, it's both gonna be, like, a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, everything's sort of a big deal. One of the other things I was thinking about was, like, I think maybe it can be easily confused, like what a divorce is. And I just wanted to kind of make it clear and talk a little bit about how, like, divorce is a man-made thing, and just like every other sin, it's like a perversion, or it's skewing God's original intention and the way that he designed things. But divorce isn't like, I don't know, like it's not a thing that God created or that he intended. It's purely like a manly or like a human thing. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I feel like when you think about that too, it's like this wasn't ever supposed to be an option. And again, that doesn't mean that like if you get a divorce, you are absolutely the worst. Like every sin is weighted the same. But also keep that in mind, in that like God didn't want this to be an option for us too.
Well, oh, dang! I just closed out my notes. You're up, Corey.
Nice.
Jump in.
Okay, cool. Well,
Sorry.
Maybe it'd be good for us to talk a little bit about, I guess like why people
I found it.
get divorces, or like, is it okay to have a divorce? Like, what do you do when you or someone else is thinking about getting a divorce?
Yeah. Well, a thought I had was,
comes.
what do you do? Like if you're married, man, like let's say you want to continue working through it and your wife doesn't. Like, what do you do? That's like a thought I had. Like, let's say I was in that spot, like, what would I do? I don't know is the answer. I think that I think one thing that I've like learned in just like dating and like then being married, so because all that combined has been like almost 4 years now with Connie, and I think for us like I think we put ourselves in the best position to succeed when we are meeting with counsel, like often. I think whether things are good or bad, just like we have a couple we meet with, like no matter if even if we like don't have anything to talk about, we still get together with them. I think like just doing that is good, and I think that like putting that in place is super underrated. And I think that like even if you got to a spot where, okay, let's say my wife wanted a divorce and I didn't, like because we are with a couple that has known us for a while, I think that would like really help things, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's probably like the trickiest of situations when you're not on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Normally it's like,
she sucks, I suck.
Yeah, people are kicking and screaming, like, get away from me. They're in mutual agreement.
Mm-hmm.
This is the best thing for us. Well, one of the verses that I wrote down, I think might be helpful here. It's 1 Corinthians 7:10-11. He says, I think it's Paul speaking. He says, "Now to the married I command, yet not I, but the Lord. A wife is not to depart from her husband. Now even if she does depart, let her remain unmarried, or be reconciled to her husband, and a husband is not to divorce his wife." So I guess to kind of answer your question with this verse in mind, just because one person wants to get divorced doesn't mean that you get a divorce. I mean, it's still hard, but I mean, even if both people wanted to get divorced, this still doesn't mean that you should get a divorce just because you agree on that. You could both agree and, be wrong. Now, I think that there are situations where, yes, it's technically allowed, or at least it seems like it from the verses that we have. But like, if my wife left me and was like, I want to get a divorce, I would say no.
Yeah.
And especially if I wanted to. Now, if I wanted to get divorced in that moment, if I was living in sin, or if Satan had a foothold in my heart, like maybe I would say yes, but I would say no. Like we're not getting a divorce, and legally, there's nothing that she can do. Like you have to both be in agreement on it, and you let her remain, apart from you, and you pray for her, and you try to be reconciled, and vice versa too. Like if the man leaves and was like, I want to get a divorce, it's the same deal.
Mm-hmm. I know this is basic, but I want to make sure we're on the same page. So my understanding is that marriage is only permitted when there's adultery, right?
Marriage or divorce?
Divorce is only permitted.
Yeah, you can only get married if one of you is...
Divorce is only permitted when there's been adultery, right? Like biblically speaking.
Okay, so this is the verse that we have on it. Now, I did some digging because I think it's important to try to get this right. Although I don't want to be the ultimate authority. I don't think either of us look to the Bible. Yeah. But this is what we see. And I think the closest verse that we have on this is Matthew 5:31-32. And it says, "Furthermore, it has been said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you," and this is Jesus speaking, "that whoever divorces his wife for any reason except sexual immorality causes her to commit adultery, and whoever marries a woman who is divorced commits adultery.
It sounds to me
hard.
like either way, it doesn't sound like God is stoked on divorce, right? It's
Right.
very clear that like even if your wife or your husband commits adultery, like God's not saying like, all right, you're good, like you're clean.
Yeah.
Like, either way, it sounds like, hey,
Either way, there's sin.
This is bad. This is sin. But yeah, I just want to say that.
Yeah, it's hard because you could just take this in isolation and just read, but I say to you that whoever divorces his wife for any reason except sexual immorality causes her to commit adultery. Wait, that's confusing. For any reason except sexual immorality causes her to commit adultery. Oh, I see. Okay. So you could just take this like for any reason except sexual immorality and be like, oh, okay, cool. That's the one hook there. But then it says, and whoever marries a woman who is divorced commits adultery. So it seems like there's, like you said, there's sin either way. Like it's never like an okay thing.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He's not saying like, hey, like if she commits adultery, then you're good. It sounds like he's saying like, except for adultery, then you are causing her to commit adultery, you know? Like,
yeah.
And I don't know, I think, cause I've grown up hearing that. Like, hey, you're good. Like, as long as it's, divorce or it's adultery, then you're fine. Or I'm sorry, the opposite of that. But I think either way, it's sin. Either way, it's like not as God intended, you know?
Yeah. That's hard. I mean, again, like divorce is a man-made thing. So I don't know if there's ever a situation where it's like, you're okay, clean slate. Now, that said, again, there's no like condemnation to hell if you do get a divorce or if you have been divorced. And we're not even saying, I don't know. Let's try to tiptoe around this a little bit.
Well, I think we've been really clear that we're just talking about this idea. Like this isn't like, here are the answers. We're just hashing it out. So
yeah, we're just hashing it out.
Which again applies, I think, for every topic we talk about.
Yes.
We're just hashing things out.
Take it with a grain of salt. Okay, but to answer your question, based on this, it seems to me, and I'm very open to correction because this is a really interesting topic, but it seems to me like it is permitted, but not without consequence or sin, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Or approval, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know.
Well, I don't think God approves of it,
Yeah.
but again, I think it's legally permitted, but that there still will be consequences, both physically with a divorce and spiritually with sin. So that is a hard one, right? So when you or your friend wants to get a divorce and you ask why, and they, like, what are the reasons that are like, I get it, or like it's okay, or like I'm in agreement with you. It seems like the circumstances are almost zero.
What should I say to that, Corey?
I don't know. Again, we're just hashing it out here.
Yeah,
but it seems like I would never, from this, the stance that I would probably take, it seems like this is the most informed decision, is to not encourage someone to get a divorce. Like, I should try my hardest to discourage it, no matter the circumstance, and to always be reconciled back to your spouse.
No matter what?
No matter what.
Even if a spouse cheats?
Yeah, because, again, I think it's
so
maybe legally permitted.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Still sinful.
I think you're totally right.
But that I should not encourage it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to try to stop it and disapprove of it necessarily, like with all my force, but I'm not going to encourage it.
Yeah, I think you're dead on. I think that like when you get into the details of that, I think that's really hard. Like thinking of like, okay, like let's say me and you, right? Let's say like your wife cheats on you. Let's talk 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
Monique, for some reason, cheated on you, and you're heartbroken, you're devastated. I come to you, and I have to still encourage you to work through it and to be with her. Like, I think that that'd probably be hard for you to hear, and then B, like, it'd be super hard for me to feel that way. I would feel like, no, dude, screw her, get out of there. That's how I would feel. And so, that's not right. But I think just like my fleshly and your fleshly like responses would be hurt and anger and frustration.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you are totally dead on as like a friend or a pastor, a mentor, whatever, like your obligation is to encourage your friend or those around you to figure it out and to work through it. Because like even if there is adultery or cheating in the picture, like marriage still is the best option. Like staying married is the best solution. I think you wrote it down. You said, would you put?
Maybe I did. I write down good things.
You said divorce is not a solution, but an exchange of problems.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I think like in our culture, people think it's like a positive, like out. It's a way to like resolve what's going on. And I think like no matter what the context is, like the best thing to do is work through it and stay married. And again, like that's super muddy and hard to figure out, but I think just like at a glance, like that's the right way to look at it.
Yeah. Here's something that I thought about the last time we sort of talked about it, was that if marriage is supposed to be an image or representation of our relationship with Jesus, Christ, God, obviously, and the Bible calls us the bride, right? The church is the bride, and Jesus, the Son, is the groom, and in that way, our marriage is supposed to represent that. And then I think about our relationship with God and how many times we cheat on Him, and how many times we turn our back on Him. How many times people, Christians, will devote their life to God, and will completely fall away and do a bunch of things that would probably break that promise that they made to God when they devoted their lives to God, and then come back, right? And God isn't like, okay, cool, like we're done, I want to move on to someone else. Like, no, His will for each of us is to always be reconciled, is to always be made right with us, no matter what. Like He says, there is nothing that can separate us from the love of God, and there's nothing that we could do in order to not be able to accept His gift of salvation. And so I feel like in that way, like even if we didn't know anything else, like despite all the legalities and technicalities, we should look to our relationship with God in that image and say, I mean, pretty literally, like, what would Jesus do? And Jesus would say, like, I love you no matter what, and we're going to get reconciled, and I want you with me, no matter how many times that you fall away. Actually, there's I'm probably going to butcher this, so I apologize to everyone, but there's some scripture, I want to say even Jude, gosh, I'm totally butchering this right now, but it's basically, it talks about God and His heartbreak for how many times people fall away and they like basically turn away from God. I think about the Israelites too. You know what I mean? How many times they were God's people, He's leading them out, and then they doubt Him, or they fall away, or they want to go back to slavery and to sin. And it's just crazy, but every single time God still wants to be them. God still accepts them. God still wants them back. And I think that's a super hard pill to swallow, but I think that I do believe that it's God's will for each of us, if we were considering divorce, to always reconcile.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I also think like from thinking of the perspective from like husband and wife, like no matter what your spouse does to you, like that is your call to love them. Like always take them back, always receive them, always forgive them. And like no matter what, and again, like thinking like for me, like in my life, like we haven't had any crazy offenses so far, nothing like bizarre, but even like in small things, like when I get frustrated over super petty things, like it can be hard to like forgive her or to like, whatever. And it's so silly and so small, but like even for like the bigger scale or small scale, like we're called to accept and to forgive and to receive, like no matter what,
Yeah. So Monique and I gave a little talk at the Purity Conference at Foothills. Actually, so the title of our message, which we did not come up with, was "The Secrets to Dating." I don't know.
Wait, you know the secrets?
No, dude.
You have the answers?
That's why we read it, and we were like, we don't know anything, dude. No, we know some things, but when we were writing and planning our message, one of the last things that I talked about was basically the whole premise of the message was like, talk about your guys' experience dating and like what makes for a successful marriage in the way that you dated. And one of the things that we talked about was like the meaning of marriage and having that in mind while you're dating. And
sounds like a book.
Yeah. Well, different, like not from the book, but the book the book does talk about this, but
Kyle's book.
No.
I hope he's listening right now.
Yeah, no diagrams in this one.
That's funny.
But I'm rambling. Sorry. Basically the point of it was talking about that marriage isn't just like a promise, that there's like a purpose behind a marriage,
Mm-hmm.
and a marriage's purpose isn't to make you happy. It's not even really to like, I don't know, reproduce or like multiply and I don't know, be fruitful, whatever it is. Like the primary goal and purpose of a marriage is to help each other become more sanctified and to amplify each other's effectiveness for the kingdom of God, and that you're better together than you were before, apart, and that you are helping each other become more like God. And I think in that sense too, like that, when someone does something crazy, very, divorce-worthy things, you're married, and it's your purpose and it's your job to try to get them to be sanctified and to help usher in God's sanctification in their life and their heart.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. I think that like, on both sides, like you take like man and wife, and let's say the wife causes the offense, like the wife will be sanctified like through the process, but even the husband will too. Like, even as he's having to forgive and to receive, like that grows you, and it, I don't want to say fixes you, but it helps improve like who you are as like a man, and it's gonna like fix what was broken. And I think like divorce is like the opposite of like what we want. Like that's sin having its way.
Mm-hmm.
There was an issue, there was an offense, and so what's the answer? Oh, like let's just walk away from it. Like that. It's working against itself, and so I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I think, again, I can't speak from experience, and it's hard to even kind of imagine this, but talking to you about like divorce isn't really a solution. It's just an exchange of problems. And I wonder too, like when people want to get a divorce, and like what's really the reason kind of behind it? Is it that they don't want to be with that person anymore? Is it that it's unreconcilable? And I think that, time often kind of like plays these things out, but like, if you really got to the bottom of like, why do you want to get a divorce? I think deep down, a lot of times, and this is a little scary for me to say, but like, it's pretty selfish. You know what I mean? It's usually not really about the other person. One of the things we talked about a lot is like, marriage isn't hard because you have to live with someone else. It's because you're exposed and like you have to face yourself. In that same way, it's like you have to face your own ugliness of I don't want to forgive, or I'm bitter, I'm angry.
I'm curious on what it's, again, like being newly married, but I'm curious on what it's like for other guys, or even like for being married like longer periods of time. I feel like to be honest, I feel like right now in our marriage, like we've gone through like so far it's been like a good like burst or like season of like Jeremy being exposed, and then it's like I'm the one that's like, oh, here's all of your issues. Which I didn't expect because I'm pretty,
you think highly of yourself,
pretty on it. But I've kind of felt like shoot, like is this gonna like balance out, or is it always me? Like, and how do you do? Because I thought about that before I got married. Was like, yeah, I'm sure I'm gonna be exposed. What I didn't think about was like how long that period of time like might be of me being exposed. Like it's honestly, it's been like just a few months of like topic after topic of like thing I'm doing wrong, and just like multiple things, and it's kind of like, man, like. I didn't think it would be like, so like constant, I guess, I thought it'd be like, oh, I have one issue, she has one issue, kind of like back and forth. And it's not like that. It's like, kind of like, or like,
here's this thing. Now we deal with it. Now it's gone, but it's like over and over and over.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, and that to me is like the humbling, like refining part, because it's like, it's not like an easy fix. It's like, oh, like here's a problem, fix it. It's like, oh, like here's a problem, like again and again and again. And eventually, hopefully it will be fixed. But
yeah. Well, think about God and his relationship with us, and like how frustrating that might be. That, if nothing else, that's the reason why, like, I know for sure that like God is God, and he's not just like some like kind of person or higher being, is because if he was, he would have given up on us a long time ago. Like there's no reason to stick around for the human race. That is a tough thing. Like over and over again, you're just like, dude, I suck. And like, this isn't just going to go away overnight. And, that's also, I think, part of that marriage is that's God using your spouse to say, hey, dude, like, you're not as cool as you think you are.
Hey, dude.
Just like that. That's how God spoke to me. Yeah, that's definitely a hard part.
You want to call it?
I think we should call it.
Yeah,
I think we've definitely hashed it out a lot. And we'd love to hear from you guys on, I don't know, thoughts, comments. Feel free to challenge us. You can bring up other scripture. We tried to involve as much as we could. And again, we're not trying to be the authority here. We're just sort of bringing up the points and trying to figure it out for ourselves. It's definitely a hard topic. And so I think we had a pretty good discussion about it.
Yeah, I'm pleased.
You're pleased.
Kind of.
Jeremy's pleased. We can go home, call it a day. Good. Sounds good. Well, thank you guys again for listening. As always, please subscribe. Give us a 5-6-star rating, preferably if you can.
Okay.
Tell a friend.
Explain how to do that, because David Matringa asked me, how does that work?
Oh, good question.
And
okay.
I explained it, I think, but I want you to.
Okay, so if you're on your computer, you go onto your desktop iTunes app. If you're on your phone, you just open up your Apple Podcasts app, and then you go to our podcast, and then I'm pretty sure there's a tab on there that says ratings and reviews, and then there's a little button that says write a review. And then all you have to do is click that button. You can even just click 5 stars. You don't have to say anything.
So
just
for
submit.
the 6 stars is what I meant.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, for the 6 stars. Okay, right. So you go to the tab that says write review. You give it 5 stars, and then in the little text box, you put another star. You can put like a little star, emoji star, and then that's the 6 star.
And it counts, actually?
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
All right.
No, Apple doesn't actually see it, but they don't need that.
All right.
You can even
All right,
give
David,
7.
take notes, bro. There you go.
There you go. There it is.
I want 10 stars, David.
You could actually.
Yeah.
Just 5 emoji stars.
There we go.
And speaking of which, actually, too, I wanted to mention a lot of people have said that we should talk about other podcast apps that you can use to listen to our podcast. And so you don't have to do it just on Apple Podcasts. You don't even have to do it just on the desktop. There's other great apps you can download for free.
Such as
Overcast is my preference.
That's mine too.
Breaker is another great one. Spotify also has podcasts. You can find us there. Those are probably the main 3 I would recommend. If I didn't have everything already so like hooked up and set up on Overcast, I'd probably do Spotify.
Really?
Yeah. Well, also because I have a Spotify subscription. If you don't, probably doesn't make sense. Overcast is probably my favorite one because you can create different playlists. You can choose different speeds, and you can even like customize the speed for each one of your podcasts that you listen to. Automatically download. You can star in favorite ones. And there's really good sharing options. You can share like little clips. And so it's really neat. Useful little guys.
All right. Well, until next time.
Until next time.
Peace.